Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. You can go to thechadshow.com. You can dial up 844-DIG-CHAD to be part of the broadcast. Tell everybody what you think. We got a lot of headlines to get to. News is breaking out all over. It's supposed to be a slow news week before Labor Day, but it's lots of stuff's going on. I'm going to get you all the headlines. I want to talk about O'Donnell over there at MSNBC showing that Trump is right about fake news. You got to hear the apology O'Donnell had to put on the air yesterday. A mother in trouble for her vanity plate that I think we all can actually get behind. And you know those really cool doorbell video cameras, the whole Ring thing? Well, they're hooking up with about 400 different police departments to use your video. Does it worry you at all? Or you say, hey, Greg, it's security. It's helping make the neighborhood safer. All that and more coming up in this hour of the Chad Show, 844-DIG-CHAD. So here's some of your headlines. We got Dorian now. It's through the Virgin Islands. It's through Puerto Rico, and it's gaining momentum, right? So by this weekend, the experts, and I use that term loosely when we talk about hurricanes because they seem to be wrong so much, but they're saying it's likely to be a major hurricane, could be Cat 3, Cat 4, threatening Florida's Atlantic coast. Most computer models show it cutting across the state of Florida, somewhere in central Florida, and going out into the Gulf of Mexico. But, you know, there's all kinds of computer models, and who knows what's going to happen over the next couple of days. All I can tell you right now, I live in Florida, and I went to get water last night, and there was no water. And that's because I procrastinate, just like everybody else. But I got water this morning, so everything's fine. And to be honest with you, the only reason I got water is because my wife wanted water. Happy wife, happy life. So I got some water because we got water. I mean, I have, what would you call these things? Vessels to put water in. I just fill up the bathtub before the hurricane comes, and I've got gallons of water. Why do I need to go buy water? Because you want to make your wife happy. So we bought some water. Water. It's all about the water. All right, everything's good. So there's Dorian. Then we move on to what's happening with James Comey. Yes, the Department of Justice Inspector General Horowitz has put out his report on Comey, and it doesn't look good for Comey. Now, you would think it looks great for Comey, because Comey tweeted out this little message here. The Inspector General found no evidence that Comey or his attorneys released any of the classified information contained in any of the memos to the media. I don't need a public apology for those who defame me, but a quick message with, sorry we lied about you would be nice. and more. Wait, you'll see why this is funny here in just a second. There was more to the tweet. And to those who spent 2 years talking about me going to jail or being a liar and a leaker, ask yourselves why you still trust people who gave you bad info for so long, including the president. The problem with that tweet is the Inspector General report did show that he was a liar and a leaker. The only good news in this entire report for James Comey is that it didn't show he leaked any classified information to the media. It showed that he leaked secret information. It showed that he leaked confidential information to the media. It just showed he didn't leak classified information. I mean, this is a blistering report against this guy. The Justice Department watchdog on Thursday, according to The Hill, released a scathing report stating that former FBI Director James Comey violated bureau policies and his employment agreement with handling of the official memos detailing his interactions with Trump. One of them did contain classified information. He released that one to his attorneys, not to the media. So, see, I deserve an apology. What are you talking? You are a liar and a leaker. That's what this shows. There were 7 memos. 4 contained secret or confidential information. You know, Andrew McCarthy was on Fox News Channel saying, here's the part I don't understand. Why did Comey have to do this by leaking this information? He could have just come out and given a press conference explaining why he thought there needed to be a special prosecutor. I think because at first he was hoping to remain anonymous about it. That's why he did it, because he knew that what he was doing wasn't right, and it worked. He got the special prosecutor that he wanted, so he was very happy about it. Yeah. Comey testified June 8, 2017, that he directed his friend, Daniel Richmond, to share the information with the New York Times, all to trigger a special counsel's investigation. So the Inspector General showed that Comey failed to live up to his responsibility by not safeguarding sensitive information obtained during the course of his FBI employment. It went on and faulted him for leaking the memos in order to, quote, create public pressure for official action, and doing so, quote, set a dangerous example for the over 35,000 current FBI employees and the many thousands more former FBI employees who similarly have access to or knowledge of non-public information, according to the report. In other words, James Comey going out here going, hey, I'm James Comey, and I know more than everybody else, so I get to choose what I release to the media, even though it's not public information, even though it was secret or confidential information, because I know better, and I'm doing it for the good of the country. So I get to decide when it's okay to break the rules of the FBI and really break the law. It's just they're declining to prosecute him. It's kind of like what they did with Hillary. Yeah, she broke the law. I mean, you know, but we can't find the intent to break the law, so we're not going to prosecute her. That's not in the statute. In fact, you don't have to have an intent to break. Well, we're just not going to do it. And it's the same thing here. Same thing here. So James Comey, I'm James Comey. I know more. I get to release this if I want to. So what about all these other people at the FBI that might think they want to release stuff? Oh, no, those people will charge. The only one good thing they found in the entire report was they didn't release classified information to the media, and he's demanding an apology. So we'll continue to get into that as the show unfolds today. Love to know what you think about that decision not to charge him after everything they're finding in this. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has dropped out. I know you're very disappointed. That was your person. You were the one. You were the one. And God bless you for being the big supporter, but she did not have enough support to get into the next debate coming up here in a couple weeks, and so she's finally dropped out. Now, Business Insider thinks this is the bigger deal than most do, because they said their internal polls show that she had a lot of supporters. It was just that her supporters like somebody else better. Yes, you in the back. Doesn't that mean they're not really her supporter? Well, they're not her number one supporter, okay? It's kind of like, you know, the NFL season is about to start here in a week, and maybe you're a big Dallas Cowboys fan, but you're also a really big San Diego Charger fan. I mean, you got an NFC team, you got an AFC team, but the Cowboys are your number one team, and the Chargers, not San Diego, L.A. That's hard to remember that. As the number two. So, you know, if it wasn't for Dallas, you'd root for the Chargers. It's kind of like that, is what they're saying. So they think this is specifically going to help Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, because their internal polling shows that the Kirsten Gillibrand supporters like those people too. And maybe Senator Cory Booker. Oh, okay. All right. Speaking of Elizabeth Warren, The Hill's making a big deal about Elizabeth Warren's big crowds. She's the only one really on the Democratic side that seems to be drawing big crowds. Bernie is. Bernie's still drawing the big. I went to a crowd. I think I have a lot to talk about. I was in trouble with this guy in San Francisco. He said I was cranky and angry. Me? Cranky and angry. Can you believe it? Yeah, there's a San Francisco restaurateur that says he's no longer supporting Bernie, although he's a big Democrat, because Bernie was cranky and rude to his staff. Evidently, Bernie's got some crowds too, but the big news is Elizabeth Warren. The Massachusetts Democrat drew 15,000 people to a presidential campaign event in Seattle this week, 12,000 in St. Paul, Minnesota last week, and they're expecting bigger crowds to come. Do you remember? Go back in the Wayback Machine for just a second. That's my Wayback Machine. Go back to the last election cycle, presidential, and remember when everyone in the media said, Trump, yeah, sure, he's got crowds. He's just an entertainer. It doesn't matter that he's drawing crowds. Come on, he doesn't have a chance. Anyone. But now, all of a sudden, the crowds matter. Now, I think crowds always matter. It is an indicator to some degree of your support, because if you're willing to go to one of these town halls or big events or whatever you want to call it, and you're willing to stand in line, and you're willing to brave the elements, and you're willing to wait for this person to talk, and then you're willing to wait to get a selfie with Elizabeth Warren. I heard she was taking selfies at one of her events this week for 5 hours. If you're willing to wait 5 hours to get a selfie with Elizabeth Warren, there's a little bit of connection there, right? So, yeah, she may be the one on the Democratic side. We'll see. I really don't think it's going to be Joe Biden. Speaking of Joe Biden, Joe Biden, what, did his brain surgeon come out and say that his brain was okay? That was last week. What about the psychiatrist that said that maybe he's got some issues like Trump does? That's this week, but I don't know if I trust any of these people. But no, this time Joe Biden's out praising another former segregationist. Okay, before I play this, I just wanted to say this whole, I agree with Dave Chappelle that this whole cancel culture stuff is nonsense. That you're going to try and look through somebody's entire life, find one or two things they said or did 20 years ago that offend you, and therefore say that entire person's life is now meaningless. Or that person should lose everything. I think that's crap. I really do. And I don't care whether you're on the left or the right, the way we catch you saying something. Now, if it's a pattern that's gone on for a long time, or if it's something that's just totally inexcusable, you find out the guy's a child molester, okay. But an offensive tweet? Now, having said that, some of the people Biden has been praising don't fit so well in what he's trying to show, as he is the oldest white man running. So he was at a town hall in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and he decided to praise former segregationist Fritz Hollings. Here we go with the audio.
I spent an awful lot of time in South Carolina because of my good friend, and he was my great friend, and helped me a great deal through some very difficult times, Fritz Hollings and Pete Hollings, and I miss him.
Yeah, Fritz Hollings was a Democrat segregationist. I'm going to get you some of the details on some of the stuff that he did while in office that might just upset the woke Democrats. Then Tulsi Gabbard on the whole DNC process, and the big apology from O'Donnell on MSNBC proving Trump is right when he talks about fake news. We'll get all that in your phone calls as well. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on the program. My name's Greg Knapp, filling in for Chad on The Chad Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you in, 844-DIG-CHAD. We've hit a lot of the headlines. One of the headlines is Biden praising another segregationist senator. Have you watched Biden at all? I mean, if you watched the debates, you saw him stumbling some and looking old. You know how, have you ever had that relative, maybe it was your dad, maybe it was your grandfather, maybe it was your great uncle, you hadn't seen him in a while, and you showed up to a family event, and you were like, oh, man, Uncle Joe looks old. Man, he's getting really, because he's shuffling his feet, he's not speaking very well, he's slurring his words a little bit, maybe he forgets some things, like whether he's in New Hampshire or Vermont, stuff like that. Oh, wait, that's Joe Biden. Yes, that's what Joe Biden looks like. And if you've watched him give a talk on a teleprompter, if there's more than 2 syllables in the word, he's going to mess it up. And then he can't remember when MLK was assassinated. Was it the 60s or the 70s? I mean, just all this stuff that's going on. It's starting to add up. And he's praising another segregationist senator. Let's hear that one more time. Joe Biden.
I spent an awful lot of time in South Carolina because of my good friend, and he was my great friend, and helped me a great deal through some very difficult times, Fritz Hollings and Pete Hollings, and I miss him.
Yeah, he was a segregationist. He was the governor of South Carolina from 59 to 63. He did soften on segregation, saying that the integration of Clemson University must be done with law and order. But he was also a little, some say, anti-Semitic. In the Senate in 81, he referred to Democratic Ohio Senator Howard Metzenbaum, who was Jewish, as the senator from B'nai B'rith during a floor debate. Isn't that nice? That's a organization devoted to promoting Jewish identity, combating anti-Semitism. Metzenbaum wasn't too happy with that one. Then when Fritz Hollings ran for president in 83, he criticized supporters of California Senator Alan Cranston, saying, you had, and I'm using his words here, quote, you had wetbacks from California that came in here for Cranston, end quote. That's nice. Had more anti-Semitic attacks in 2004, and Biden he praised on Hollings in 2010. Of course, Biden has done this with a couple other segregationists. And don't forget Biden's own. I'm thinking the Democrats are holding off on some of the things that Biden has said. I mean, everybody knows that when Biden was running against Obama, he referred to Obama as, quote, the first sort of mainstream African-American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, he hit about 3 dog whistles in one sentence there of racist. Wow. Then he joked that in Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking. That's Joe Biden. They're just waiting to bring those kind of things out. But he keeps making new ones every day. That's just, how long is this guy going to be able to hang in there in the polls? I think as soon as this field narrows down a little bit more, if it was just Elizabeth Warren versus Joe Biden right now, does she win? If it was just Bernie versus Biden, would he win? If it was just Kamala Harris versus Biden, probably not. I think one of those two could probably beat him right now. Tulsi Gabbard is ticked off. She is Iraq War veteran, Tulsi Gabbard. She's the one that single-handedly took Kamala Harris out of the running, basically, in the last debate. She's back from doing her stint with the Guard, and she thinks the DNC is rigging things against her. I'll get you that and the apology from O'Donnell in a minute. My name is Greg Knapp in for Chad. 844-DIG-CHAD on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. Do you think Joe Biden's going to be the Democratic nominee with another slip praising a segregationist? Do you think it matters that Elizabeth Warren is now drawing big crowds? Is it going to be her? And now Tulsi Gabbard, very upset. She's not getting into the next Democratic debates because she said the DNC is choosing which polls to look at. You have to have 2% in national poll. And she said, I've got that in a couple national polls, and they're not using those. So she went on the Tucker Carlson show to talk about this, criticizing the DNC for how they're making the decision on who gets into the debate and pretty much pulling a Bernie. You remember Bernie last time. This is rigged. It's all rigged for Hillary to win, for me not to get in. So Tulsi Gabbard is now saying that's what's going on here. Let's hear the first cut here from Tulsi Gabbard.
The whole thing gets a little bit confusing, and you've got to jump way down into the weeds of the numbers and the statistics. But I think the bigger problem is that the whole process really lacks transparency.
Right.
People deserve having that transparency because ultimately it's the people who will decide who our Democratic nominee will be and ultimately who our next president, commander-in-chief will be. And when you see that lack of transparency, it creates, a lack of faith and trust in the process.
What? A lack of faith and trust? No, there's no lack of faith and trust. Yeah, they're going all the way back to Watergate is when most would say that the average American started to say, man, I can't trust my government. And yeah, probably never really should have. And the thing is, every entity is run by humans, and humans are flawed, so every entity is flawed. And the problem is, when you get more and more individuals running something where there's a level of anonymity, it becomes even more flawed. And when you give it even more power, it becomes even more flawed and more dangerous. And that's what's happened as our government has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. More power, more power, more power. More anonymity, more anonymity, more anonymity. And you add all those things together, and now you've got absolute power with absolute corruptibility. And you shouldn't be surprised when you see it being abused like this against the average person and against the candidate who maybe doesn't fit what the party wants. And remember, the parties get to choose their nominee. Now, they like to make you think it's all up to you, but there's a lot going up at the top ends of these parties to determine who even gets to run. And people are getting tired of it, and Tulsi Gabbard's one of them. And she said not just for who's going to run on the Democratic side, but also really the trust and transparency of our entire government, cut to from Tulsi.
And I think this also points to a bigger issue and challenge that goes beyond the DNC and party politics is the government itself.
Right.
You know, there's people who are increasingly losing that faith and trust in the government because they see a lack of transparency there. They see that we don't have a government that is of, by, and for the people. And really what they see is a small group of really powerful political elites, the establishment, making decisions that serve their interests and maintaining that power, while the rest of us are left outside. The American people are left behind.
Do you trust the government? There's a question for you. Do you trust the government at all? Is there any part of your government that you trust? And I guess we have to define trust. I don't. I would say no, I don't trust, but I may have a trust issue. I mean, I don't trust pretty much anybody. I'm like Reagan, trust but verify. I will trust you a little bit, and I got to be able to verify that trust. So, like the military, I trust individuals in the military. Do I trust what the military tells me? Yes, we have won against ISIS, or yes, we have this or that. No, I don't trust that. I want some verification. Now, if you say, would I trust the United States military telling me something over China? Yes. Over Russia? Yes. But that doesn't mean I still trust everything they told me. Like if America says we shot down an Iranian drone, and the Iranians said, oh, no, you didn't. It was really one of your own drones that got shot down by us. Well, I'm going to probably trust America first, but I would like some verification. Because we've been lied to. We've been lied to too many times. And I don't care what part of our government it is, I'm not trusting it. And I think that's what Tulsi Gabbard was getting to here, and I think she's right. And it really hurts your society when they don't trust you. You can't trust your own government, that's a problem. And that is where we are, no doubt about it. Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC has shown that you can't trust the news, but you already knew that. But he's definitely playing into Donald Trump calling it fake news, because Lawrence O'Donnell goes out on Tuesday and he reports that he has a source close to Deutsche Bank that says President Trump's loans in the past were co-signed by Russian billionaires close to Vladimir Putin. Yeah. And then he goes on to say, well, I haven't seen the documents. Well, it's a single source. Well, it hasn't been confirmed by NBC, who I work for. But I'm telling you, it could be. and you're like, wait a second. This is the kind of stuff bloggers in their pajamas in their mom's basement used to put out that people on network news would make fun of. And now this is Lawrence O'Donnell doing it because he hates Trump so much and is hoping to be relevant somehow and get some ratings somehow. So the Trump family's like, this is totally wrong. The Trump lawyers came out. This isn't true. We've got the actual documentation to prove it. We demand a retraction. We demand an apology, and we're suing you. So Lawrence O'Donnell got a little call, I'm sure, from the people at NBC saying, dude, what are you doing? And here's Lawrence O'Donnell's apology.
Last night on this show, I discussed information that wasn't ready for reporting. I repeated statements a single source told me about the president's finances and loan documents with Deutsche Bank, saying, if true, as I discussed the information, was simply not good enough. I did not go through the rigorous verification and standards process here at MSNBC before repeating what I heard from my source. Had it gone through that process, I would not have been permitted to report it. I should not have said it on air or posted it on Twitter. I was wrong to do so. This afternoon, attorneys for the president sent us a letter asserting the story is false. They also demanded a retraction. Tonight, we are retracting the story.
And then not. I mean, this has got to kill him to have to say this. This had to have been written by like the NBC legal department. Lawrence, you're going out tonight and you were saying exactly what we have in the teleprompter. And I don't want any rolling of the eyes. You have put us in a horrible position. You went with a single source. You don't know if it's true. You didn't do any kind of verification on this. You can't do it. I love that. I did not go through the rigorous verification and standards process here at MSNBC. Really? They have a rigorous verification process. Then how did you get on the air with it? Well, because I'm Lawrence O'Donnell. I'm an anchor. So he apologized, but he went on just a little bit more on his apology.
We don't know whether the information is inaccurate, but the fact is we do know it wasn't ready for broadcast, and for that, I apologize.
We don't know if it was inaccurate. Doesn't that mean you don't know if it's accurate? Don't you love how he put that? I mean, he's still trying to weasel out of it. We don't know if it's inaccurate. It's the same kind of thing they tried to do to Trump on the Russian collusion nonsense when they go, well, we're not saying he's completely exonerated. Well, there's no investigation that says you're exonerated. The investigation either says you're guilty or not guilty, or we're going to press charges or we're not going to press charges. You are innocent until proven guilty, and they tried to flip it, where you're guilty until we say you're exonerated. And that's what Lawrence O'Donnell's trying to do. Normally you say, we're not sure if this is accurate, so we're not going to even tell you what it is. Now it's, well, we told you, and we're not sure if it's inaccurate. That's like, what was it, Dan Rather? Fake but accurate. Remember that? Oh, yeah, it's fake but accurate. And that's what you have. I don't understand that. Well, that's because you're not a newsman. If you were a newsman who hated George W. Bush at the time, you'd understand. And if you were a newsman who hates Donald Trump, then you'd understand. Speaking of Trump in the news, though, I got a bone to pick with Trump on this. He's all after Fox News now. All after Fox News. Very upset. He was watching America's Newsroom, and he said this. Just watched at Fox News heavily promoting the Democrats through their DNC communications director, spewing out whatever she wanted with zero pushback by the anchor. They weren't heavily promoting the Democrats. They were allowing the DNC communications director to talk. I agree that if they say things that are wrong, you should push back with facts. And unfortunately, it seems like they push back on the Trump people much more than they push back on the Democrat people on all the networks. Went on terrible considering the Fox couldn't even land a debate. The Dems give them nothing. At CNN, at MSNBC are all in for the open border socialists or beyond. Fox hires give Hillary the questions at Donna Brazile. Juan Williams, low rating Shep Smith, hopeless and clueless. They should go all the way left, and I still will find a way to win. That's what I do. I win. Too bad. Then he goes on. I don't want to win for myself. I only want to win for the people. The new at Fox News is letting millions of great people down. We have to start looking for a new news outlet. Fox isn't working for us anymore. Okay, here's the problem I have with this. No network is supposed to work for you or against you. The news is supposed to be reporting facts of the events, not for it, not against it, reporting the facts. Then you decide what to do with those facts. Now, there are opinion shows on Fox News, and those opinion shows are generally conservative. There are opinion shows on MSNBC, and those are all liberal. But the idea that one network should work for or against a politician or a group of people, no. So sorry, President Trump, that's just not right. What do you think? Is Trump crossing the line here, saying Fox isn't working for us? And then he went on to say this, that, where's the one I want to, oh, yeah. Trump talked about, actually, whenever possible, I turn to @OANN. That's the One America News Network. So Trump's promoting networks on his Twitter feed? And ripping? Yeah, that's probably not good. Probably not good. What do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. My name's Greg Knapp. I want to tell you about the mother with a vanity license plate that she's getting in trouble for. And if you have children, I think you're going to be on her side. Greg Knapp in for Chad on The Chad Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad. You can go to thechadshow.com for more, and you can find out more about me at gregorybknapp.com. That's Gregory, B as in boy, Knapp as in Peter.com. If you click on the podcast up there, I've got a podcast called Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. Has nothing to do with politics at all. Would love for you to check that out. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and all those places. Just type in Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. It'll pop right up. I take you to New Hampshire. Was it Vermont? No, Joe Biden. We're in New Hampshire. And the mother here is very upset. She wants to keep her vanity license plate. She's had it for years. And she's losing it now because evidently somebody complained. Somebody complained. She's had this 15 years. 15 years. Here's what it says. The letter P, the letter B, the number 4, the letter W, E, G, O. Put it together. What does it spell? P before we go. Now, if you're a parent, you understand why this mother got this vanity license plate. P before we go. I think it's hilarious. And I 100% support this woman's, I wouldn't say right. You don't have a right to have a vanity plate. But this woman's privilege to have this license plate. Because it's funny. And it's not offensive to anybody who is not a total idiot. I'm sorry, but I don't know any other way to put that. It's P before we go. It's not an expletive. It's not for titillation purposes. Well, though, see, it talks about an excretory function, and therefore it's offensive. Yes. She's at risk of losing. She's received this DMV notice to surrender the plate. P before we go is said to violate a rule against referencing excretion. She's holding on to the plate while she appeals the decision. Okay, so here's what I just want to know. Who complained about that? What kind of life are you living? That you're driving down the road, you see P before we go, and you think to yourself, I've got to make it my life's mission to get that license plate off the road. I mean, I know that we live in a world of evil. I really do. We live in a fallen, evil world. And you see so much of it around you. Murders and rapes and unbelievably foul language in public that a generation ago would have been fighting words, and crazy stuff in the movies and TV shows and all this stuff that you're like, I can't even protect my kid anymore. But where I draw the line is the P before we go license plate. That's the pushback area right there. If we can just stop the P before we go vanity license plate, then we'll get this country moving back in the right direction. Who is worried about the P before we go license plate? It's the cancel culture, man. It really, and it's the offensive culture now, where if we're offended, then we must stop it. If one person doesn't like it, and when are we going to push back on that and say, you know what? You don't have a right not to be offended. You don't have a right to cancel everybody else because you're offended. What about the fact that you're offending me? What about that, huh? I mean, take it to the transgender bathroom thing. Well, see, I'm uncomfortable I mean, I'm biologically male, but I feel female, so I should be able to go into the female restroom because I feel uncomfortable in the men's restroom. But what about the women in the women's restroom feeling uncomfortable that a biological male has come into their bathroom? Well, too bad. They need to get over it because I'm uncomfortable in the other one. So one person feeling uncomfortable is more important than all the other people who might feel uncomfortable. Oh, and by the way, if the other people feel uncomfortable, it's their fault. Well, that just shows that person's intolerant. Wait a second. Why isn't the male who feels like a female intolerant of other males in the bathroom? What do you mean? Well, you just said that it's intolerant to be uncomfortable. So the male who feels like a female should be tolerant of the men in the men's bathroom and just go into that bathroom. Well, that's totally different. No, it's not. One person feeling uncomfortable should not be able to make everybody else feel uncomfortable. And one person being offended should not tell everybody else what to do. Sure, we should be kind to each other, nice to each other, try to, take care of each other. But this has got to stop. My name's Greg Knapp in for Chad. This is The Chad Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. Glad to have you along. We got a lot to do in this hour of the program. We've got Bernie Sanders saying great things about China. We've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying great things about millennials. And, hey, I love millennials. I'm just not so sure she's hitting on the right things here. And both Bernie and AOC claim to be socialists. Oh, sorry, democratic socialists. Well, if you look at the Democratic Socialist Party and read what they stand for, it's pretty socialist. But hey, there's a lot of young people who think socialism is great. And according to AOC, it's because they're better informed than you are. Oh, that's why, huh? Okay. Police find something in a coffin that wasn't supposed to be there. I'll get you the details on that. And I got to get you this story about those Ring doorknobs. You know, the ones that have the little video cameras in there, where the company Ring, which has been bought by Amazon, has worked out deals with 400 police departments to use the video. Wait, what? Well, I'll get you the details. Maybe it's not quite as bad as it sounds, but I would love to know your opinion on that as well. It's all coming up this hour. Chad Show, 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board, 844-DIG-CHAD. My name's Greg Knapp. Let's hit it. So, Bernie Sanders, Socialist Democrat Vermont, declaring that communist China has done more to alleviate poverty than any country in history. Well, it all depends on what you mean by alleviating poverty. It depends on what you mean by the most. You mean in terms of numbers in your country, because there's over 1 billion people there. Well, let's skip down to the nitty-gritty of this. The reason that people are coming out of poverty in China is capitalism. Greg, communist China, not as they use more capitalism in their economy is when they've had more people be lifted out of poverty. Not only that, what they tend to do is let poor people in from the countryside to work in these factories just until they make enough money to start getting mad and clamoring for better benefits, and then they fire them and kick them out and bring in another group of people who are really poor out in the country. Remember, they got 1 billion people. They got plenty of poor people they can bring in to do this to, who are glad to work for almost nothing until they make something, and then they kick them out and start all over again. But it's capitalism that is helping these people slowly climb out of poverty more than anything else. Nothing has lifted more people out of poverty in the history of this planet than capitalism. And if you look again at the countries near China, like Japan, South Korea, they're doing much better in terms of their average living standard than they are in China. Why? Because they're democratic and they're more capitalist. And you look at Hong Kong, more capitalist. That's one of the big problems that Hong Kong is having with China, because as you make more money, you start demanding things. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, I've taken care of my food, my shelter, my clothing. I would like some freedom, please. Well, as soon as you want that, then we're going to boot you out. But here's Sanders just singing the praises. China's a country that is moving, unfortunately, at least he says this. China's a country that is moving, unfortunately, in a more authoritarian way in a number of directions. But what we have to say about China, in fairness to China and its leadership, is, if I'm not mistaken, they've made more progress in addressing extreme poverty than any country in the history of civilization. So they've done a lot of things for their people. He didn't address how China's government is oppressing religious groups, minorities. You realize there's about 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps right now? I mean, real concentration camps with torture and re-education going on. Not what they're claiming is going on in our holding facilities at our border, but real concentration camps where they're monitoring and closing down information on Google and Facebook, right? Where the Communist Party requires all religions to pledge ultimate loyalty to President Xi. One-party system. But, hey, they're doing a lot for don't forget about Mao in 1957. He did a lot for his people, right? Remember the Great Leap Forward? Oh, yeah, this was going to really help China. And it led to a famine. Well, pretty much the most deadly famine in the history of the world. About 20 to 45 million people died between 58 and 62. But, hey, it's doing a lot for its people. This is the kind of nonsense that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez continues to talk about. And I love what Victor Davis Hanson is saying about socialism. I'm going to get you that, too. But first, let's get a little bit of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because she did one of her Facebook Live deals, and some people recorded it and put some of the highlights or lowlights, depending on your point of view, up on Twitter, and it's become a news story. Because AOC came out, she was asked the question, is the new generation too delicate? She said not only are they not too delicate, but the young people understand our history and are more informed than previous generations. What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is AOC. So let's hear a little bit of this. When her first question is, she's asked, is the new generation too delicate? Here's AOC.
Is the new generation too delicate? No! I don't think they're too delicate at all. I think that they're badass. I think young people are more informed and dynamic than their predecessors.
More informed and dynamic than their predecessors. So this new generation is more informed. How? How are they more informed? Than who? Than their predecessors. Okay. In what way? And more dynamic? So more informed and more dynamic than the greatest generation. Well, yeah, because now we've got Twitter. We've got Instagram. We've got Facebook. We have Snapchat. I mean, of course we're more informed. I will grant this. You have more opportunities to be informed because of the internet. There's no doubt about it. You also have more opportunities to be misinformed. Just because you have more information doesn't mean you are better informed, because it goes by the quality of the information. And I would say that, too, about the universities. The universities are teaching now differently than they did generations past. And they're teaching the Howard Zinn theory of the history of America, which is blame America first. And every negative thing America's ever done is magnified to say that's what America is. And everything going around the world that is negative is blamed on America. All the positive things that America has done and has influenced around the world is ignored. That's what she means, I guess, by informed, right? She goes on. Here we go, AOC.
I think that they are more sensitive in a positive way, in that they actually care about other people's experiences and lives.
Wait. I don't think they're too delicate. I think they're badass. I think that they are more sensitive in a positive way in that they actually care about other people's experiences and lives. So get that. If you're not part of the new generation, you don't care about other people's lives. You're not accepting. Really. You don't actually care about other people's lives. Again, so we're saying all these generations that have come before and have sacrificed so much for their children, for the nation, for the homeless, for the downtrodden, for the mentally ill, for everything our nation has ever done and all the generations before us, they don't actually care about people because they won't call him or her Zer or Zem. So they just don't understand. They're not as sensitive and caring as you are about other people. Unless, of course, you disagree with this younger generation, then they call you a Nazi, try to boycott your business, and try to shut down your life. But other than that, they're they're the tolerant ones. They're the ones that are all about love. And they're the cancel culture. All right, we got a little bit more from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Go ahead.
One thing that I love so much about this new generation is the radical acceptance that I see from so many. And they actually take time to read and understand our history, the history of the labor movement, history of civil rights, history of racial struggles, history of economics, history of the United States, history of colonialism. And they're not afraid to have those conversations. If anything, I think they're profoundly courageous. Because they're willing to puncture taboos and have conversations that, frankly, older generations sometimes struggle to have. Not everyone. I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush.
Oh, no. I don't paint. She just did, of course, painted the entire. That's what she always does. She paints America as racist, America as sexist, America as xenophobic, America as homophobic, America as transphobic, America as the worst ever. That's what she does. And she's saying that this new generation, their radical acceptance, really, except for, of course, anybody who disagrees with them. And it's the most intolerant generation we've ever had. Because we are now into the thought police and the speech police. If you don't speak exactly the way they want you to speak, if you don't say the words they want to and leave out the words they want you to, then you are a Nazi. You want to call a felon in San Francisco a felon? You're a horrible, awful person. They are justice-involved residents. You want to call him a him and her a her? You are a horrible, awful, evil person. You want to actually have our laws enforced? Oh, you're in favor of a racist justice system. Really, they're radically accepting and actually take time and read and understand our history. No, they don't. They take time to read and understand the worst parts of America and ignore the rest and not put things into context compared to what other countries, compared to what other forms of government, compared to what time frame it's in, because I will stack America up against any country in the history of the world when you actually compare apples to apples. But they don't want to do that. They want the Howard Zinn history of America and history of the world. And she's telling you that they're great because they want to have those hard conversations. No, they don't. They don't want to have a hard conversation where we actually talk about both sides of the story. They want you to shut up and to listen to them tell you how you're wrong and America sucks and white heterosexual men are the big problem in the world. That's what they want you to do. And if you push back at all and say, what about this, then you're an awful evil Nazi and you should shut up and you should lose your business and your life should be over. But they're radically accepting. Right. We got one more piece from AOC I want to get to in just a second to wrap it up. And then it'll tie right into Victor Davis Hanson, who has a great piece about why is socialism surging for the young people in America? Why is that happening? We'll get to that in just a second. Love your thoughts on what AOC had to say there. And if you agree that this young generation is not too delicate, they're radically accepting, they're more informed and more dynamic than previous generations, they know more than you. I mean, hey, that's why AOC should be in charge, right? 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
Experiencing separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
And my name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board. Find out more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com. Gregory B as in boy, Knapp as in Peter.com. Click on podcasts to show you my podcast. I've got one that's not about politics at all. It's called Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. Would love for you to check that out and let me know what you think about it. We're talking about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat, New York. She was doing her live Facebook, and somebody asked her the question, is the new generation too delicate? She said, oh, no. In fact, they're more informed, they're more dynamic, and they understand our history better than previous generations. They have radical acceptance of all, unless you disagree with them. And then, of course, you're part of the cancel culture where they're going to try to boycott you, destroy your business, and destroy your life, call you a Nazi and every other word they possibly can. And they're the ones ready for the serious discussions. No, they're not. They want you to shut up and listen to what they have to say. Understand our history. No, they understand the far left version of our history where it's always America's fault. They have no clue about true socialism and communism and the millions of people killed by it. They have no clue about how capitalism has helped raise more people out of poverty than anything else in the history of the world. And they're the ones that we should be listening to, and people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Here's the last little bit we have from her on her live Facebook feed.
I think this new generation is very profound and very strong and very brave because they're actually willing to go to the streets. How about that? Like, previous generations have just assumed that government's got it. Let me tell you something. You are the government. Like, as a democracy, we the people means you. You are, as a voter, you are the government too. And if we are not in the streets, if we are not organizing, then what we are doing is abdicating ourselves from government, and then you're actually allowing someone else to take over.
Okay, let's look at that for just a second. I think this new generation is very profound and very strong and very brave because they are actually willing to go to the streets. So walking in a march with signs with absolutely no risk to yourself at all. I mean, let's be clear about this. If you're, going for some kind of left-wing cause, there is no risk to your life at all, as opposed to, say, the civil rights movement, when there was a great risk for you to march because there were fire hoses, there were dogs sicked on you, there were police hitting you with batons for doing nothing but marching, whereas now there are people on the far left who are the people who are doing the violence in the Antifa movement. So I guess they didn't take to the streets during the 60s, during the Vietnam saga, during the civil rights saga. They didn't take to the streets then. But I do agree with her that you are your government. We are our government because it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The problem is we don't feel like we are because we say, hey, we vote for certain things. We vote people in and it doesn't happen. And then we've got such a huge government now that we feel like we can't make a difference. And we've got these bureaucrats and these anonymous people in the government that get to tell us what to do when they're not even laws. I mean, laws are written, and then we allow these regulatory departments to write regulations that have the force of law that we don't even have anything to do with. So, yeah, maybe more of us should take to the streets. The problem with what AOC says, it almost sounds like she wants you to violently take to the streets. And taking to the streets is... She said, in the past, they just said government's got it. No. What we have said in the past is we've got it and we don't need you, government. But now if you say individuality is a great thing, you're told that you don't care about people. Wow. Hey, do you have one of those Ring doorknobs? We'll talk about it next.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad. You can go to thechadshow.com. You can call 844-DIG-CHAD. I'm going to get into this doorbell camera firm Ring and the fact that it partnered with 400 police forces for using the video. What? Oh, there's a little bit more to it that you need to know. We'll get to it in a second. But I wanted to wrap up this talk about Bernie Sanders praising China, AOC, also a Democratic socialist, talking about how the younger generation is more dynamic and more informed than about American history and world history than ever before. And that, of course, that leads to why they're wanting to be socialist. Now, she didn't say that, but that's the obvious conclusion to this. And there's a new Harris poll out showing about half of the millennials would like to live in a socialist country, to which you would say, are you insane? But that's because, as Victor Davis Hanson points out, the handmaiden of failed socialist regimes has always been ignorance of the past and present. So now you got all these politicians, the so-called squad and Bernie, and so many on the far left, acting like socialism really isn't bad. Socialism is actually a good thing. It just wasn't done right in these times before. I mean, Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, Soviet Union Joseph Stalin, Chinese revolutionary Mao killed tens of millions of people each. And then there's, of course, Che and Castro. The young people love them. They got them on T-shirts. They're responsible for the murders of thousands of Cubans and Latin Americans in the effort to solidify the Cuban socialism throughout Latin America. Then you add in the language police, the anti-free press, the gulags, the starvation, the executions that are the hallmarks of socialist and communist regimes. And yet we have the young people, about a third would like to live in a socialist country. About half would like to live in a socialist country, right? Because we know more. We're more educated than you guys are. So back to Victor Davis Hanson. He said lots of young people claim to be socialist, but really are just angry because they can't afford a home, a new car, the nice things that they see in their woke urban neighborhoods. See, usually Americans become more traditional, more self-reliant, and suspicious of big government as they age. Why? Usually because they've gotten married. They've started raising children. They own a home. They live in a suburb, and they have to deal with the complexities of life, and they see government is not the answer. And they certainly see they don't want less freedom and more government. As Reagan used to put it, they've been mugged by reality. But see, this younger generation hasn't been mugged by reality because they haven't moved on to do these kind of things. Most aren't married. Most don't have children. Most aren't buying homes as quickly or easily as they have in the past. Because one of the things they're doing is they're concentrating in these huge cities, in the city where it's really expensive to live. And often they're getting borderline minimum wage jobs and can't figure out why they're not earning enough to enjoy all the great things they see around them in the city. And I love what Victor Davis Hanson says here. These are the ingredients for a culture that emphasizes the self, blames others for a sense of personal failure, and wants instant so-called social justice. And the schools and the colleges have now replaced the empirical study of economics, history, and politics with race, class, and gender indoctrination. Exactly so. That's why when you see AOC saying, oh, no, this new generation's so informed. No, they're not. They're indoctrinated. See, when our schools and colleges don't teach unbiased economics and history, says Victor Davis Hanson, then millions of youth have no idea why the United States, Great Britain, Germany, Japan became wealthy and stable by embracing free market capitalism and constitutional government. And few learn why naturally rich nations, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Venezuela, or entire regions such as Central America, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, have traditionally lagged behind due to years of destructive central planning, socialist economics, and coerced communist government. And instead, they're taught the reason is America's bad. America bad, socialism good. And eventually they believe it. And that's where we are. Victor Davis Hanson, what do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD to get your thoughts on that. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. I also want to know what you think about these doorbells. Now, when these doorbells first came out, these Ring doorbells, I thought, man, that's kind of cool. I mean, you've seen them. The person rings the doorbell, and it alerts you on your phone wherever you are. The video camera on your doorbell shows up on your phone. You can see who's at your front door. That's pretty cool. I like it. Some people have put in motion sensors. Somebody walks up on your porch because we got those porch pirates now. They're really active during Christmas, but they're active all the time because we're all getting stuff sent to us from Amazon every day. So they're running around picking up your stuff. So now, a little motion sensor. You've got the video. You can go to the cops. Hey, this guy stole something off my porch. All right, awesome. And now Ring is working. Ring was bought by Amazon. That's the doorbell camera that's most popular. And they've forged video sharing partnerships, according to the Washington Post, with more than 400 police forces across the United States. And they're granting them access to your camera footage for the new neighborhood watch. Okay, wait a second. Wait a second. You're telling me that if I have one of those Ring doorbells, that the police have access to my video even without asking me? Well, no. It's not that bad. It sounded that bad until you read the whole article. Oh, sorry. Smacked my microphone around a little bit. I apologize. It sounded like that until you really start to read this whole thing, because it doesn't let the police automatically get your video. What it allows the police to do is automatically request your video. So you'll get an email. Hey, we had something happen on your street last night. We would really like access to your doorbell camera so that we can find out more information to make your neighborhood a safer place. And right away I go, okay, that's a little different. So now what we have is, instead of the police having to go door to door, knock on everybody's door in the neighborhood, find out if you have any kind of surveillance video, and then ask you if they can use it, they know automatically if it's registered with Ring, and they can instantly send you an email and ask you for that footage. Are you okay with that? Man, I don't know. I am such a privacy hound. I don't want the government having access to me. I don't trust the government. I don't trust how people will use information. I don't like it. I don't want you to mess with me. Well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then why would you? See, I hate that. I don't even go down, because if you're going to go down the whole, if you're not doing anything wrong, why would you care thing? Well, then why do we have any privacy? I mean, if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you need privacy? If you're not doing anything wrong, why can't the police just walk right in your house and look around and make sure you're not doing anything wrong? I mean, they solve a lot of crimes that way, because we actually believe in privacy in this country. And we actually don't think that we should have to worry about the government walking into our house at any time, day or night. And this is just a slippery slope, isn't it? Well, but Greg, don't you want to solve that crime problem in your neighborhood? I mean, your camera has video of the guy running down the street with your neighbor's TV. Don't you want to turn that over? Well, if I saw that, yeah, I'd turn that over. I mean, how about that? How about I look at my own video footage, see if there's anything on it, and if I see something bad, if somebody doing something in my neighborhood, I'll turn that over. I don't know that I necessarily want an email from the police asking me for that, because now what if I say no? Am I now on some kind of a list? Am I now going to be looked at more closely? Greg, you're kind of paranoid, aren't you? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not really out to get you. I don't know. I just worry about it, man. Ring's owned by Amazon. Eric Kuhn is the general manager of Neighbors. It's Ring's crime-focused companion app. And it said, the mission has always been make the neighborhood safer. We've had a lot of success in terms of deterring crime and solving crimes that would otherwise not be solved as quickly. Okay, I agree with that. But then you got the other side, the privacy advocates. They're saying they really want this stuff everywhere. I mean, we're living in a time where we're getting very close to 1984, and we may have so much surveillance footage, from street cameras to ATM cameras to store cameras to doorbell cameras. Pretty soon, you're not going to be able to go anywhere where you are not being videotaped. Is that the world you want to live in? And It could turn residents into informants, and innocent people who maybe are identified by Ring users, because you can flag people as suspicious, are they going to be subject to greater surveillance and potential risk because of this program? Andrew Guthrie Ferguson is a law professor. He wrote the book, The Rise of Big Data Policing, and he said, if the police demanded every citizen put a camera at their door and give officers access to it, we might all recoil. And by tapping into a perceived need for more self-surveillance, playing on consumer fears about crime, Ring has found a clever workaround for the development of a wholly new surveillance network without the kind of scrutiny that would happen if it was coming from the police. And he's right. I mean, I've talked about this before. The part that I think George Orwell got wrong with 1984 was that it was all going to be forced upon us by our government. I think our government's gotten too smart for that, and they know that we would rebel, and so there are other ways to do it. And maybe some of it is because people in the government want it. Maybe some of it is the data gathering. I mean, think about this. If I said to you 20 years ago, I'm the president of the United States, and I say to you, I am going to demand that every adult American citizen, no, wait, scratch that, every American citizen above the age of 12 must carry with them at all times a GPS tracking device. And that's what I'm requiring for your safety and security. We'd have a riot in the street. There's no way people would put up with that. I mean, literally, people would be in the streets fighting that. But you realize that's what we have right now, don't you? Right now, every American citizen above the age of 12 is carrying with them on their person pretty much 24/7 a GPS tracking device that's called your smartphone, because all of them have the GPS chip. All of them. And we're all doing it voluntarily because we want the cell phone. I'm doing it. I'm Mr. Privacy. And if I want a new app on my phone and it tells me all these things I've got to say yes to in order to get the app, I go, yep. Don't even read it. And I've just gotten to the point, I'm like, I guess I lost the privacy fight. Yep, we're losing it. So does this bother you, or is this something that you think's really cool for Ring in order to keep us safe in our neighborhoods? Oh, and then we've got facial recognition to get on the airplane. That's already happening at DFW in Dallas. I'll get you the details on that, too. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege, please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, fool. Ain't nobody got time for that.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
It's funny because it's true. 844-DIG-CHAD. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. And find out more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com. My podcast is called Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. It has nothing to do with politics. And you can find it every place you can find a podcast. Just type in Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. So we were talking about this doorbell camera from Ring and the fact that they have partnered with 400 police forces extending surveillance search. You get an email saying, hey, we'd like to see your email footage. Now, Ring says, we're not giving the cops your footage without your permission, and we're not just going to do it without a warrant. But we want you to help. Ring users are alerted when their doorbell chimes or camera senses motion, then they can see what's going on. Now, if you want to be part of this thing they're calling the neighbors feed operates like a stream of local suspicion, says the Washington Post. It takes official police reports compiled by the neighbors' so-called news team, and they put that in with what Ring calls the hyper-local post from nearby homeowners, reporting stolen packages, mysterious noises, questionable visitors, missing pets. Roughly a third of the neighbors' posts are for what they call suspicious activity or unknown visitors. About a quarter are crime-related. And users are anonymous on the app. Now, the public video doesn't obscure faces, though, or voices from anybody caught on camera. And the police officers can chat directly with the users on the neighbor's feed and get alerts when a homeowner posts a message from inside their watched jurisdiction. The Neighbors app also alerts the users when a new police force partners up saying, your Ring neighborhood just got a whole lot stronger. So is this great? Is it a great way to fight crime, or is it a little creepy? Or is it a little bit of both? Meanwhile, American Airlines now at DFW in Dallas is starting to use facial recognition technology to get on international planes. Now, you still have to use your boarding pass to get through security, but once you're through security, then you would use your facial recognition to get on the plane. Here's what they say happens. Once you come to board, it matches your face with your passport photo, and if it matches, it allows you to board the aircraft. Only on international flights right now, but they're expecting to expand it. And I'm thinking it's not going to be very long that's going to be the way you get on planes. Biometric data instead of your boarding pass. I mean, what could be wrong with that? It's probably going to be faster. It's probably going to be better. Well, first of all, what are they going to do with the photos? They claim they're not going to store them. I don't know. We've been told that many, many times before. Secondly, how accurate is this stuff? And what if it gets it wrong and then you can't go on the plane? Or if you look similar to a terrorist or you look similar to a criminal? I don't know, man. I mean, because, computers never make mistakes. Garbage in, garbage out. Computers never crash. Computers never have problems. And what could possibly be wrong with more surveillance? I mean, come on, Greg. Don't you want us to be safe? I don't know, man. I'm just very, very skeptical and worried and nervous about all of this surveillance. At some point, it's just too much. I mean, it's just too much. I take you to Colombia. Police officers stopped a truck and wanted to inspect a coffin in the truck. And they thought, this coffin's kind of heavy. I mean, it took a bunch of them to get it out of the truck. The thing weighed 661 pounds. Now, that's one fat corpse. So they popped the thing off, and sure enough, dozens of packages of marijuana weighing a combined 661 pounds. It was near the country's border with Venezuela. It doesn't say whether it was going into Venezuela or going out of Venezuela, because if it's going into Venezuela right now, with all the problems they're having, people can't eat. If you want to lose weight, move to Venezuela right now, right? Too soon, Greg. Too soon. But if it was going into Venezuela, these guys are really in trouble because once they get high, there's nothing to eat when you get the munchies. I mean, that's just mean to make people who are starving get the munchies. Hey, I got a lot of headlines for you, including what's going on with Dorian, what's going on with some of these Democratic candidates, who dropped out, who's still in it. We'll hit it all. My name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Benson Show. 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board. 844-DIG-CHAD. You can also go online, thechadshow.com. Lots of ways to be a part of it. I want to get into some of the headlines of things that are going on. Then Beto O'Rourke gets asked a very difficult question, and he blows it. And then I want to talk about whether or not you are really a citizen if you're born in the military overseas. Wait, what? Yeah, I know. It's kind of a crazy one. I'll get you that story, too. We got a lot to get into. Let's jump right in. Here's some headlines. Dorian, it could be a Cat 3, Cat 4 by the time it hits landfall, is what we're being told now in terms of the United States landfall. I'm looking at these computer models and the cones, and the latest one, most of the computer models are showing it cutting across somewhere in the middle of Florida and cutting over to the Gulf and then turning straight north. And so we'll see. Now, there are a couple tracks. One shows it closer to Jacksonville. One shows it kind of missing mainland America until it hits South Carolina. So it's still so far away, it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. But the cone shows landfall might be somewhere around, I don't know, maybe late Monday, early Tuesday morning. So it's still a long way away. We don't know, but obviously people are already freaking out, buying things off the grocery shelves, and it's hard to get water, and it's the standard procedure every time we have a hurricane starting to get close. It's been a very slow hurricane season, and hopefully this one won't become a Category 3 or 4. It'll fizzle out or it'll turn far north, and we'll see. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has dropped out. I know, you're very upset, aren't you? No, you're not. You don't care. Well, Business Insider says some people should care because with her gone, some of her supporters will go to Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris or maybe in Senator Cory Booker. Yes, you in the back. Wasn't she polling at less than 1%? Yes, what's your point? She doesn't have supporters. Well, she had some, and some of them may go to these other people, and that might help them against Joe Biden. Because, look at Elizabeth Warren. She's got crowds now. The Hill saying that she drew 15,000 people to an event in Seattle on August the 25th, 12,000 in St. Paul, Minnesota on August 19th. And more people want to see her. And now I'm telling you, it shows that there's a lot of support for her. Yeah, you in the back. What? When Trump had crowds, you guys told us it didn't mean anything. Yeah, you're right. We said that, and we were wrong, and he won. So we're not going to make the same mistake again, okay? She's drawing crowds. And I actually do think crowds matter. I mean, if you're willing to do everything it takes to plan to go to one of these events, go against the elements, whether it's hot, whether it's rainy, whatever it is, sit there for hours waiting for the politician, listen to what they have to say, and then hang around for selfies, then you probably have some kind of a connection to the candidate. And the only person we're really seeing this with is Elizabeth Warren. What about Bernie? Well, yeah, Bernie still has some people, but he doesn't have the crowds he did last time around. I think he may have missed his window, and it may be time for Elizabeth Warren. Well, it could still be Joe Biden. He's still leading in the polls. Well, Politico has a piece out here. He's stuck his foot in it again. Here's Joe Biden. He is now praising another segregationist senator. This happened yesterday in Spartanburg, South Carolina, explaining his love for Senator Fritz Hollings, Democrat, South Carolina. Here we go. Listen to this.
I spent an awful lot of time in South Carolina because of my good friend, and he was my great friend, and helped me a great deal through some very difficult times. Fritz Hollings and P.T. Hollings. And
not just a good friend, but a great friend. Helped him through some difficult times. And as Political points out, Hollings was a segregationist. And yes, over the course of his career, he became a reformed segregationist, but he was governor of South Carolina from 59 to 63. In 81, he said some things that many believe were anti-Semitic. He called Ohio Senator Howard Metzenbaum, who is Jewish, the senator from B'nai B'rith during a floor debate. Now, that's one of the organizations devoted to promoting Jewish identity and combating anti-Semitism. Senator Metzenbaum was not pleased with that one. Then in 1983, he was running for president, and he was upset with supporters of California Senator Cranston, who was also running for president. Cranston finished ahead of him in the Iowa straw poll, and Fritz Hollings said, quote, this is a quote, not me now, quote, "You had wetbacks from California that came in here for Cranston," end quote. Yikes. And you also had him in 2004 doing some more anti-Semitism on the Israeli government officials. But Biden is happy with, good friend. Now, listen, I can see Biden having a good friend who has said some things that he wished he hadn't said, had a history of something he wished he hadn't happened. I do think we're not giving people enough chances in life that, hey, you used to be this way, now you've evolved. We have to allow people to change in life, don't we? I mean, if 20 years ago you were one way and now you're the other way, should everything you've done since you changed be eradicated by something you did 20 years ago? I don't think so. But if you're trying to run in the woke Democratic presidential sweepstakes, that's what they believe, and you never get to change. If you've ever done something that they find offensive, that's it. So, is it going to hurt him? Is it going to be enough? I mean, to me, watching this guy walk and talk, mainly talk, he's walking okay, but watching this guy talk and stumble over 3-syllable words and not know whether he's in Vermont or New Hampshire and not know whether Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in the 60s or the 70s, and just watching the things that this guy's done recently, I don't see how you can put him up there. He's too old. And not by age, because you could be, 80 and be in better mental shape than somebody who's 65. But his mental shape doesn't look so good to me. Oh, but what about Trump? You see Trump giving these impromptu press conferences for 30 minutes? He looks pretty okay to me. What do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're in. There's some of the headlines. Oh, I don't want you to miss this one because, no matter where you stand on the whole abortion debate, when you hear this, you've got to say the guy didn't answer the question. Because Beto O'Rourke had been asked before about third trimester abortions, and he said, it's up to the mother. Third trimester, up to the mother. So at an event in South Carolina the other day, one of the people in the crowd posed a question to Beto O'Rourke. And listen to the question and listen to the answer. You tell me, did he answer this question? Here we go.
If you think on September 7th, 1989, my life had no value.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. Stop that for a second. Let's reset that because I thought it was the complete question. The beginning is he says, I was born on September 8th. 1989. And then he talks about, so the day before I was born, did I have no value? So he was born September 8th, 1989. Here's the rest of the question.
If you think on September 7th, 1989, my life had no value.
Of course I don't think that. And of course I'm glad that you're here. But you referenced my answer in Ohio, and it remains the same. This is a decision that neither you nor I nor the United States government should be making. That's a decision for the woman to make. We want her to have the best possible access to care and to a medical provider. And I'll tell you the consequence of this attack on women's right to choose. And I listened to you and I heard your question. I'm answering it.
At the end, you could barely hear it when he said, I'll tell you about the impact on the woman's right to choose. And he said, but what about my right to life? So it's very interesting. The question was, I was born September 8th. So on September 7, did my life have value? It's a very easy question because what he's saying is, you say that my mother could have chosen to abort me the day before I was born. So are you saying my life has no value the day before? And his answer is nonsensical. Of course your life has meaning the day before. Of course I'm glad you're here. But it's up to your mother to decide. Well, then it doesn't have any value. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. He didn't say it's up to your mother to decide because, that would show that you had value. It's up to the woman to decide. So like I said, I mean, really, no matter where you stand on abortion, can you really believe that the day before your natural birth date, your mother should just be able to decide she doesn't want you? We're not talking about life-threatening situations. We're not talking about that. We're not even talking about the health of the mother here. We're simply talking about who gets to decide that. And Beto O'Rourke thinks the woman should. But don't worry, your life has meaning. How can your life have meaning if some other human being can eradicate that life? Again, we're talking about one day before you're born. One day. Wow. Hey, isn't this a guy that is always accusing Trump of not caring about humans, about separating parents from their children, about putting children in cages, about how dehumanizing his rhetoric is? That's what Beto O'Rourke keeps saying about Trump. And Beto O'Rourke thinks the day before your natural birth date that the woman has the right to decide if you should be born or not. Oh. I mean, who couldn't get behind that? Meanwhile, a former Planned Parenthood employee just won a $3 million lawsuit. Why? She alerted supervisors to potential malpractice and illegal activities at several Planned Parenthood locations in Arizona like she was supposed to. And then she got fired. We're going to tell you the details about that in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are in. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. You can go to thechadshow.com. Learn about me by going to GregoryBKnapp.com. That's Gregory B as in boy, KNAPP.com. And my podcast is Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. Find that anywhere there is a podcast. Just type in the title. It'll be right there. Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. This Planned Parenthood whistleblower, here's what happened. Maria Rodriguez, a jury said that Planned Parenthood was wrong to fire her. In August of 2017, she alerted officials at Planned Parenthood that one doctor was linked to a number of women who suffered complications after their abortions. But get this, that doctor had medical assistants sign affidavits that said the operation succeeded without a hitch, and they signed these before the operations took place. And in fact, in one case, the doctor couldn't even say for sure that he actually completed the abortion because an ultrasound showed the abortion was incomplete. The woman had to redo it. In another case, one manager broke the law by neglecting to inform authorities when a minor with an adult partner requested an abortion. She won $3 million for this, and she's saying, hey, this isn't it. She said, I hope my case is a lesson to other workers that shows that the truth will prevail. I hope my case is a lesson to employers who abuse their power. Sometimes the underdog wins and justice will be done. She worked there 17 years, and she was seeing this stuff happen, and she said, we got to stop it. And then they fired her and came up with chump reasons to fire her, and she won. Wow. Hey, did you see the Department of Justice watchdog coming out? Horowitz came out. The IG report is out on James Comey, former FBI director. And James Comey thinks he's vindicated, man. I mean, he's tweeting stuff out. He's ready. You know, he said, DOJ, IG found no evidence that Comey or his attorneys released any of the classified information contained in any of the memos to the media. I don't need a public apology from those who defamed me, but a quick message with a sorry I lied about you would be nice. And to all those who spent 2 years talking about me going to jail or being a liar and a leaker, ask yourselves why you still trust people who gave you bad info for so long, including the president. See? Vindicated. All right. Yeah. Okay. Wait. That is the most spin I think I've ever seen on the story. Because if you notice, all the headlines are about how this report slams James Comey as a leaker and as a liar. The only read that Comey can hold on to, and it's a very slim read indeed, is that the report did not find that he released classified information to the media. No, the only classified memo he released was to his attorneys. However, it did find that he released memos to the media containing information that was deemed to be secret and confidential. So, yeah, he released secret information to the media. He released confidential information to the media, but he didn't release classified information to the media. See, I deserve an apology. The dude is a liar, and he is a leaker. And he could have been prosecuted. Bob Barr decided not to prosecute him. In fact, the IG found that he violated bureau policy. He also found, let me get some of the details here, former Director Comey failed to live up to his responsibility by not safeguarding sensitive information obtained during the course of his FBI employment. And by using it to create public pressure for official action, Comey set a dangerous example for the over 35,000 current FBI employees and the many thousands more former FBI employees who similarly have access to or knowledge of non-public information. So let me translate this for you. Comey said to himself, I don't like Trump. I think he's bad for America. Therefore, I get to release whatever I want to because I'm the FBI director and I know better than everybody else. Now, if you worked under Comey and you decided that, you'd be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But since I'm James Comey and I'm the last Boy Scout, I have the right to do this. And so then instead of just coming out and having a press conference and explaining why he thought there should be a special prosecutor to look into Trump, and instead of being honest with President Trump when he told him he wasn't a target of the investigation, when he obviously was, he decided that he would just go ahead and leak it to one of his buddies who would then leak it to the New York Times to try to get a special prosecutor. And he got it because he's James Comey. And this dude is being ripped from here to Tuesday in this report, and he's saying that he deserves the apology. Are you kidding? The inspector also found that Comey kept copies of 4 of the 7 memos in a personal safe at his home. That's, of course, not allowed. Holy cow. And he wants the apology. Wait till you hear what Tulsi Gabbard is saying the DNC is doing now. It's another rigged election. 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you in. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show. You can go to thechadshow.com and you can chime in at 844-DIG-CHAD. Tulsi Gabbard, you know her. You remember her, right? She's done really well in these debates. She is the woman who has been to war. She's actually been to war in Iraq. And she has a little different view of foreign policy than her fellow Democrats because of that. And I don't think a lot of Democrats like her. She's very liberal on a lot of issues, but she's more conservative on a few others. She's probably the most moderate Democrat of the field. And for that, there's a lot of Democrats who don't like her. Oh, and she also single-handedly took Kamala Harris right out of the race. I mean, if you saw the last debate where she went after Kamala Harris and her history of being a prosecutor, that was supposed to be a big calling card of Kamala Harris. And she was this great prosecutor that really changed things in California. And Tulsi Gabbard just took her apart by saying you kept people in jail who shouldn't have been in jail. You said you laughed about smoking marijuana when you were putting people behind bars for smoking marijuana. And I mean, she just took her apart. It was like, oh man. And she had no answer to it. And it really made Kamala Harris look bad, and she has tanked in the polls lately. And I wonder if that has part to do with this. And this I mean is Tulsi Gabbard saying the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is keeping me out of the debates, and they're doing it by cherry-picking which national polls they want to use. See, in order to get into these next debates coming up here in September, you have to have polled at 2% in a couple polls, and you have to have raised a certain amount of money. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what the number is. Well, she hasn't ranked at 2% in the polls that they look at, but she has in some other polls. So she went on Tucker Carlson last night and talked about how this process seems to be a little bit rigged. She's pulling a Bernie. Remember, it's rigged. It's all rigged. They want Hillary Clinton. She's doing the same kind of thing here. So here's Tulsi Gabbard explaining it to Tucker Carlson.
The whole thing gets a little bit confusing, and you've got to jump way down into the weeds of the numbers and the statistics. But I think the bigger problem is that the whole process really lacks transparency.
Right.
People deserve having that transparency because ultimately it's the people who will decide who our Democratic nominee will be and ultimately who our next president, commander-in-chief will be. And when you see that lack of transparency, it creates, a lack of faith and trust in the process.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, now here's the very difficult thing. I believe that the party should be able to choose who their nominee is, right? I mean, remember, during the general election, you can elect anybody you want. But during the primary, most states say if you're a Democrat, you get to vote for Democrat in the primary. If you're a Republican, you get to vote for Republican in the primary. Now, some allow you to switch over. Some allow you to switch parties up to the last second. So there's, different states do it different ways. But the party gets to decide how they're going to pick their nominee. But the parties want to have it both ways because they want to tell you that it's really up to you, the members of the party, to choose who your nominee is. But then they also go through some shenanigans on who they're going to allow to be on the ballot. And that can start all the way at the state level of, well, you haven't been in the party long enough. You haven't done enough for the party. We're not going to give you any money. We're not going to give you any support. We're going to make it really hard for you to run this campaign to be part of this primary. And so that starts to tick people off where they're like, wait a second here. I don't want you guys putting the thumb on the scale for somebody. And a lot of Democrats felt like that was done for Hillary Clinton last presidential election cycle. I don't think there's any doubt it was. The Democratic Party did not want Bernie Sanders being the nominee. They thought he would probably lose to Trump, and they knew Hillary was going to win. It was a cakewalk for Hillary. And we got to get Hillary elected here in the primary, because otherwise we might have Trump. And look what will happen. We'll have another Clinton, and it'll be the first woman, and it'll be awesome. And it didn't work. So are they doing that with Tulsi Gabbard? She thinks so. And part of it is she's getting to the point of there's not enough transparency. It creates a lack of trust. Yeah. Does anybody trust the Democratic Party? Does anybody trust the Republican Party? I don't. I don't trust either one of them. They're all saying what they need to say to try to give the impression that they want to the public. And Tulsi Gabbard expands that. She said it's not just about the party, it's about the country. Listen to this.
And I think this also points to a bigger issue and challenge that goes beyond the DNC and party politics is the government itself.
Right.
There's people who are increasingly losing that faith and trust in the government because they see a lack of transparency there. They see that we don't have a government that is of, by, and for the people. And really what they see is a small group of really powerful political elites, the establishment, making decisions that serve their interests and maintaining that power while the rest of us are left outside. The American people are left behind.
That's what a lot of people feel. A lot of people feel that way. It's part of the message that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie and Trump have all put forward. And it resonates with a lot of people. And I mean, do you trust your government right now? That's a question I have for you. Do you trust your government? Do you trust any part of your government? I mean, I don't. I don't trust any part of my government. Now, like I say that with some qualifiers. If my local police officer knocks on my door and says, hey, we've had a missing child in this area, and this is what he looks like, and would you please help us? I trust that. If there's a person I know who's in the military and he tells me something he's seen, I trust that. But if the United States military issues a press release about something that's a little squirrely, I'm going to trust but verify. I'm going Reagan on you at that point. I don't know that I trust that stuff. If my big federal government tells me something, I don't know that I trust it. If my state government tells me something, I don't know if I trust. I want some verification because I've been lied to too much. And here's Tulsi Gabbard saying, and the same thing's happening here. And the more this happens, the more it erodes that trust, the tougher it is for us to come together to actually make positive changes in our country. I couldn't agree more with that. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program, 844-DIG-CHAD. I have no idea if the DNC is trying to keep Tulsi Gabbard out of this or not. But I think what she's saying here makes a lot of sense. Lawrence O'Donnell had to apologize. Did you see this Tuesday? Lawrence O'Donnell comes out, and he says, I have a source close to Deutsche Bank, and this source says President Donald Trump's loans, his loans in the past, have been co-signed by Russian billionaires close to Vladimir Putin. Even Rachel Maddow said, what, really? Yeah, oh, absolutely. And Trump's people immediately, and President Trump himself immediately came out and said, what are you talking about? That's total rubbish. It's a lie. We're going to sue you. We're demanding an apology and demanding a retraction right now. And, Lawrence O'Donnell, he's a anchor at MSNBC. I mean, this guy, he's not some blogger in his pajamas in his mom's basement. This guy gets the facts. I mean, this guy wouldn't run off half-cocked. This guy wouldn't put something on a national news cable network unless he'd done some serious research. Yes, you in the back. Didn't he say that he's never seen the documents? Yeah, well, you don't have to see every document. Didn't he say that there's only one source? Well, sometimes there's only one source. Aren't you supposed to have two sources? Can we get this guy out of here, please? Well, it didn't take long where Lawrence O'Donnell had to come back on MSNBC, and he's now apologized. Here's a little bit of the apology.
Last night on this show, I discussed information that wasn't ready for reporting. I repeated statements a single source told me about the president's finances and loan documents with Deutsche Bank, saying, if true, as I discussed the information, was simply not good enough. I did not go through the rigorous verification and standards process here at MSNBC before repeating what I heard from my source. Had it gone through that process, I would not have been permitted to report it. I should not have said it on air or posted it on Twitter. I was wrong to do so. This afternoon, attorneys for the president sent us a letter asserting the story is false. They also demanded a retraction. Tonight, we are retracting the story.
That was like a hostage video. You know, I mean, they're making Lawrence O'Donnell retract this. But, I mean, just listen to some of the stuff. Saying, if true, was not good enough. You think? I didn't go through the rigorous verification and standards process at MSNBC. There is one? Had I gone through that process, I wouldn't have been permitted to report it. In other words, NBC Legal is saying, what are you doing, dude? You can't do that. You have one source and it's unverified and you've never seen it. And now we're being sued. Dude, you got to get out there and retract that. But he's not done. Listen very closely to the wording at the end of this apology where O'Donnell's trying to hold on to some semblance of dignity. Here we go.
We don't know whether the information is inaccurate, but the fact is we do know it wasn't ready for broadcast, and for that, I apologize.
We don't know whether the information is inaccurate. Wait, what? That's what we're doing now? It used to be we want to make sure it's accurate. Now it's we don't know whether the information is inaccurate. You know, kind of like guilty till proven innocent. So we ran with it because we hate Trump, and we don't know. I mean, we don't know that it's inaccurate. I thought you were supposed to know if it was. Well, I mean, this is a new era. This is... You wonder why Trump says fake news. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. Wait till you hear which congresswoman is calling for the UN to handle our southern border. I'll get you that in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
My name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show. Chad, that's thechadshow.com. Find out more about me, GregoryBKnapp.com. Gregory, B as in boy, Knapp as in Peter.com. And my podcast is Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion, not about politics at all. And you can find that anywhere that you have podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. So which representative is calling for the UN to handle migration crisis at our southern border? Okay, let me guess. Is it AOC? Nope, not AOC. It's got to be somebody from the squad, right? Tlaib. Is it Tlaib? Nope, not Tlaib. Ilhan Omar. Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat, Minnesota, told the Minneapolis audience this week, according to Fox News, that the United Nations should be brought in to oversee our southern border. Quote, we should do what any other country does by dealing with this situation in a serious way. So we have to bring in the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, an agency that has the expertise and the training to handle massive flows of refugees humanely. Yes, because nobody's done a better job helping keep people safe and taken care of around the world than the Blue Helmets. I mean, because, any hotspot in America, the people are always saying, oh, yay, the UN's here. Are you kidding me? With what the UN has had with its corruption, the UN has had with its sexual assault problems, the UN has had with its money problems, the UN? Here's a U.S. congressperson who actually wants to give over control of our southern border to the UN. No, Greg, she didn't say give away control. She's just saying that we need to let them handle the migration part of it. Because after all, we're treating people like criminals when they haven't committed a crime. Wait a second. We're holding them because they came into our country illegally. That actually is a crime. Well, they want refugees. Well, we want to hold them long enough so we can actually go through the whole asylum process to see whether they really should get it. Once again, Ilhan Omar thinks that America's wrong and the answer is the UN. Oh, well, that's just great. Speaking of craziness, let me take you to Vancouver. At least this hasn't happened in an American rape shelter yet. But there's a Vancouver Rape Relief and Women's Shelter. That's the name of it. It's VRRWS. Vancouver Rape Relief and Women's Shelter. And it's under attack by the far left. Now, a couple things you need to know. First of all, this Vancouver Rape Relief and Women's Shelter is run by a bunch of progressives. I mean, they were talking to Madeline Kearns over at National Review Online, says, we don't see our work in isolation. We consider ourselves anti-capitalist and anti-colonialist. And we consider ourselves to be a very, very progressive organization. So why is the left protesting them? Well, because they're not taking men. Wait, what? Yeah, it's Vancouver Rape Relief and Women's Shelter. And because they won't allow men to come in to stay the night, then they're being protested by the left because there are some leftists there in Vancouver that think if you were a man and you feel like a woman, you should be allowed to go in there. And the women's shelter is saying, wait a second, these women have been raped by men. They have been physically and sexually abused by men. They are scared to have a man come into the facility and stay there. That's why we are a women's shelter. Nope. So what the protesters are doing, at one point they nailed a dead rat to the door. They also put up signs such as kill TERFs, F TERFs, but the whole word. What does TERF mean? Oh, trans women are women, all written across their windows and walls. TERF means, that's TERF, that means trans exclusionary radical feminist. So the fact that you want a women's shelter to only have women in makes you persona non grata in Vancouver now from the far lefties, and they're protesting and vandalizing your center. Oh, it's also spread over to the Vancouver city councilors. They took away funding from this shelter, despite the fact that the $30,000 grant went toward public education and outreach services open to both sexes, regardless of gender identity. Why? Because they limit their services to biological females. We're living in a bizarro world. And that's, remember, from the very tolerant, loving left. Oh, yes, we're tolerant, we're open, we're loving, we're accepting, we're radically accepting, says AOC. Oh, yeah, unless you disagree. And then, we don't want to hear from you and really don't think you have a right to exist, so we're going to do the cancel culture. Have you been following this thing with Andrew Luck, Indianapolis Colts quarterback? 2 weeks before the season starts, he retires, says, I'm done. all this injury, pain, rehab, injury, pain, rehab. I've been in this cycle. I got to get out of it. The only way I can get out of it is to quit football. A lot of people very upset with him. Well, Rob Gronkowski now, he's out of the game. He's now pitching some CBD stuff. But he had a talk the other day where he was up there saying, I've had a situation in my NFL career. The reason I got out, the injuries were just too much. He was saying he got injured in that last Super Bowl, and it was hurting him so badly he couldn't sleep. And he was crying. And he's like, I got to get out of this. Wonder how many other football players are feeling the same thing and what the Andrew Luck Gronkowski effect will be over the next couple seasons. Hey, thanks so much for being with me. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad Benson. This is The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.